Live from Callaloo Studios in New York City, you are listening to Let's Take It Offline with your host, Kishshana Palmer.
Hey, Fab Crew. You're listening to Let's Take This Offline, the podcast for everyday leaders. Part inspiration, part sit down, let's have a conversation. Here's where you'll find the real deal about living well and leading well. I'm Kishshana Palmer, your host and resident leadership whiz.
What happened in the meeting after the meeting?
We talk about it all on Let's Take This Offline. Don't forget to subscribe, download, and leave a comment so we can keep the conversation going. This episode is brought to you by Bloomerang, the donor database trusted by tens of thousands of fundraisers. For donor management, email marketing, online giving, and more, Bloomerang has you covered. Listeners of the Let's Take This Offline podcast get 10% off their first year of Bloomerang. Just visit bloomerang.co/Kishshana. And y'all, one of the reasons that I love Bloomerang so much is beyond helping fundraisers enhance their donor relationships, Bloomerang is committed to elevating the voices of Black, Indigenous, and people of color nonprofit professionals. To learn more about contributing to Bloomerang's blog, visit Bloomerang, that's BLOOMERANG.co/blog/write. Born in Miami, but a true child of the islands, Jelaine Palmer-Janvier Lewis is a first-generation immigrant woman who has centered her life on the liberation of Black communities on purpose. With extensive experience in education, she focuses on addressing the trauma that comes with parenting while Black. Jelaine has 15 years of experience in education, specializing in social, emotional learning, developing curriculum, providing transition support, and instructional coaching. She is currently a learning specialist at KIPP Metro Atlanta. Jelaine previously worked at Orange County Public Schools, Leon County Public Schools, and Atlanta Public Schools. Jelaine holds her BA from the University of Florida, her MA from the University of Central Florida, her Ed Specialist from the Florida State University, and her doctorate, which is in progress, at Clark Atlanta University. What's up, Fab Crew? It's Kishshana, and we are back in the studio again for another action-packed conversation. Y'all, listen, we've been rocking and rolling all season so far, and I could not even put together a season without bringing to the studio one of my favorite people in the world, and happens to be my first cousin. Jelaine is in the house. What's up, Jelaine?
Hey, it's the intro for me.
Come on. Hey.
Yes.
Come on.
It's the cousin vibe, and it's like, you don't even know how excited I am. I'm just beyond excited. Excited beyond.
Listen, I'm excited for you to be here because I remember a little while back, I put a post up on Facebook and I was like, hey, are there any parenting experts in my feed? And all of the different folks were dropping this name. And you were like,
hello.
Ma'am.
Hello.
I have
it's not that I'm bragging, but I'm doing this. I'm doing this.
You are doing this. I mean, you have, how many of the children are there? Are there 3 children?
All right. There's a lot, right? It just seems like, hey, girl, are you going to stop this anytime soon? So we've got 3 right now. So Julius is 4. Judah just turned 3, and Joey is 11 months. So
you have the infamous 3 under 5.
It was 3 under 3 when Joey was born. During the panini,
Yowza.
during this panorama, I
During
had
the
3 under
panorama.
3. During the panorama, okay? 3 under 3 in the house with my husband and these 3 children. Nobody can do anything for themselves.
Nobody can. Nobody can.
Nobody. No,
Nobody
husband
can.
included sometimes. He's great. He's great, though. He's great.
But definitely, I remember thinking to myself, the queenager, she is at the age now where first of all, she did my hair the other day and is looking quite fabulous, I have to say. I said to her, this is going to make you laugh. I was like, so if you were going to charge me money, how much would you charge me to do my hair?
You know what I love about you saying that is that you're planting that seed of entrepreneurship in her mind. That even if I'm your mama girl, know your worth.
Know your worth.
Charge that plus tax. So love it.
So that's how we started the conversation, right, Jelaine? And she goes, well, you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay me, mommy. And I said, no. But if I was gonna pay you, like, how much would you charge me for this service? And y'all, Sanai put in the only, back length faux locks situation. Her mama is tender-headed. I still cry, even though I'm a woman of a certain age. And she had to tenderly take out my faux locks that I had and detangle my hair. And she'd do a deep condition. And then she put back in a new set of faux locks. And this time I wanted it to have multiple colors. And so the baby said that she would charge me $120 for the service. And I immediately said, this feels like Instagram prices to me.
I would say you got a deal. I would say you really got a deal. She did the work of the ancestors. Yeah. Oh, yes, ma'am. So she did you a takedown, a deep condition, and an install? That's the work of the ancestors.
She did. And she had to correct me and tell me that, in fact, it was not an Instagram job because the Instagram hairdressers make you come there with your hair washed, straightened, with no grease, ready to be done.
What is that?
I have no idea what that's
about. She is telling the 3,000% truth, and I don't understand that. I do not understand why you're charging me $300 and I have to come with my hair washed and blown out. What are you doing, ma'am?
What are you doing, ma'am?
For what?
And then if I'm late by 10 minutes, you charge me $50. But you're going to make me wait in my car for an hour. Or you
cancel my appointment.
You going to cancel my whole appointment.
My whole appointment.
That's why
I have 3 children. It is the work of the Lord for me to get to you in the first place. If I'm 10 minutes late, sis, I'll pay an extra $20. Your time is valuable, but
I will pay the extra.
Cancel my whole appointment.
The whole appointment. No. Have me in the street.
No.
I would talk about
in the street.
You. Right. I would have to talk about them. I'm so sorry.
It's absolute sorcery, and I'm not here for it.
I'm not at all. And I think that during the pandemic, one of the things that I realized was about like the level of skills that we have to have, particularly if you are in a household where you are a caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
That you didn't really know what kind of skills you needed to have as a parent if you are parenting, as a caregiver, because some of us are at home with our parents and our siblings that we never intended to be in the house with, as a partner if you are partnered. And I think I was reading a study the other day that talked about, this is going to come to me, who the study was by, on women in leadership. And it just talked about the unanswerable question about the value that we don't ascribe to women who are working mothers, working caregivers, working partners in the home, and what the panoramic, I call it the zombie apocalypse. I love it. What it has, the panini, what it has done to us as women. So you have been home. You are an educator. You're responsible for
so
other
many
children.
things.
Right. So tell me, what leadership muscle did you have to flex the most in the last year? I'm dying to know.
I think I am so proud of the fact that the pandemic brought me face to face really with the role that my trauma and my healing has had on my leadership style. And it really brought me to a halt for the first time in I think everybody's life. it brought me to that point where it was, I can't escape to work and then pour myself into work as an escape. My work became my house became my work, all of those things. And at the same time, I was managing people who were also confronting their trauma because they were so isolated and they were using work as an escape.
Come on.
So I think I really am proud of the work I had to do to work with people, because I work with other people of color, and especially a lot of women of color, to say to them, it's okay not to be okay, and really have those fall apart moments where I said, your profession is not your definition. And if this is the moment that you have to find your definition and it doesn't fit in this realm anymore, that's okay.
That's okay.
Because now you have the time. Unfortunately, we don't always have that time. This was kind of a gift of time for some people to really sit there and say, am I doing the thing that I was meant to be doing? Am I doing the thing that I know I'm good at? And how long can I ignore that voice at the back of my head that I know is speaking to me and saying that I'm just doing a mediocre job to get by? And I had to. Did I say it? Did I say it? I said it.
Stop right there.
I said it. I said it.
There.
I said it.
So we're gonna unpack this two ways. Okay. So the first thing I heard you say is about confronting the trauma in order to, and that confrontation caused a shift in your leadership style. So if someone were to describe you, I mean, you are warm and generous. You are a family person. You ride. You are loyal. You've had friends since you were in grade school through college. I've met many of these folks. And also you about that business. And so you come across as being about the business. And so when you say that you had to slow down for a second and confront how different, whether it was big T or little T trauma, affected the way you showed up for folks and showed up and expressed your leadership style, what did that look like for you specifically? Give me an example if you can.
So the biggest thing for me was I was 1,000 months pregnant when the panini started. And 1,000 months. And the biggest thing I really had to confront was that my achievements were what made me lovable growing up. I was raised, and that's the thing.
Go ahead.
I was raised in like a Jamaican household, and my father is Haitian, my mother is Jamaican. My mother and her family primarily instilled in me, every time I did something, I was a fairly smart kid, pretty average, but when I did something that was out of the norm, the praise and love and attention, especially from my mother, was just nonstop. It was just clear. And all of the things she always said about me were related to my achievement.
Yes.
It was never, Jelaine is a kind person or a respectful person, or she likes nature or anything like that. It was, look at the score she got. She's brilliant because she can read this many books.
Yes.
And in my professional career, my leadership career, that came out the same way. I was looking for the next achievement for so long because those achievements are what made me a good educator. It was what made me a good trainer. It's what made me, the person to go to. And I really had to stop and say, that's not what makes me a good person, though. And I want to be a leader that is a good person, because often people don't leave organizations. They leave people and managers that abuse them.
That's it.
That's what they're leaving.
That's it.
They're leaving the people that they can no longer work under. And I don't want anyone to ever feel like they're working under me. And especially education and the liberation of the Black community, we're working together. So the things that I'm doing should be uplifting the person next to me. And I want eventually you to surpass me. Your knowledge to surpass. I'm trying to give it to you so that you don't make my mistakes, so that you can take a step beyond, and we ultimately are lifting our community. So really that trauma that I faced was, there are no more achievements right now. Everything's at a standstill. Okay? There's a freeze here. It's you. It's the true work we had to do. And it's the true work that I had to do with the people that needed me. And those people weren't children. They were adults that were craving. And I mean, in the worst way, craving for someone to interact with them in a way that saw them. So That was a major shift.
That's a huge, I just want to applaud you for
Shift.
that. And just, that's huge. That's huge. And it's huge because, we grew up in the same family.
Yes. The same of everything.
Listen, Fab Crew, if you thought I was playing, if you thought that your internet dad, Bernard Palmer, was not giving you enough, welcome to yet another member of my family. And the achievement thing was huge. Our family, our parents came to this country and they were like, listen, we need you to get this education, this job, this house, this husband, these kids, and sit down somewhere and be wonderful and love the Lord. The end.
Doesn't matter if you're happy. Get these things.
No one cares.
Nobody wants to know if you're happy. How can we fund this degree?
That's it.
Are you married? And are you praying to the Jesus?
Are you praying to the Jesus? That's it. Outside of that,
that's all.
We're not concerned. We are unbothered.
Literal unbothered.
I remember telling a story, and it might have been a different episode in jest, but it did happen that my birthday is close to the end of the school year, and I never used to get my birthday gifts on my birthday. My parents are insane that they would wait until I got my grades. I'm an A student. I get the same A's every year. So therefore, you could kind of bet that just like last time, they would also be A's this time. And yet
they'd speed it up, guys. Just speed it up. Right? Just bring it on out, guys.
So this performance, if you do this thing, you will get this thing. I think came from a really good place of wanting us to be able to, put some skin in the game, right? Like that we got to be able to show up. But that's the only thing we can do to be noticed, particularly when you're in a big family where he who talks the loudest wins.
Yes.
Your achievement is your big booming voice. And so one of the things that, for me over this past year that I've really had to contend with, and it's been so painful because I did not make the space to slow down. And we'll talk about that in a second. Is that I realized that my whole life into my adulthood, even into the last iteration where I started a business full-time, etc., were folks telling me what I was good at, telling me what they thought I was amazing at, telling me how they thought I showed up. And it's good stuff. It wasn't even like it was bad stuff, but it didn't give me any space from really little to being a whole grown somebody's mama to be able to say, what do you want for yourself? And it wasn't until I had to stop and I was in the house with my kid, and thank God I actually like my teenager.
Yes.
That the question, what do you want to do with yourself? What's going on? What are you passionate about? And the probing, and my frustration with her not having a response and being confronted with that thing. What if her aspiration is to kick it? Like, what if she is the good time girl and she is cool with that? Like, I had all these thoughts, and it made me realize, oh my gosh, no one ever asked me, what are you excited about? What are you passionate about?
And I think that is such a disservice. And again, I say disservice when I say our family did their best with what they knew. The limited knowledge they had, they did their best. And I'm forever grateful for all of the sacrifices that everyone in my family, because my mom was a single mom.
Yep.
So, your dad bought me my first car. It's a thing. Our family supported us. However, when I really stopped, even this year, and I'm ashamed to even say, kids, I gave birth and I logged into virtual school. Like, I kid you not. I logged in from my hospital bed the next morning and was like, got to check on a few things. And I really had to stop and say to myself, you're not a neurosurgeon. You have to know that you have led well enough that the people will figure it out and they are capable.
Absolutely.
And none of this will fall apart. And that's real. And I always have to repeat that to myself. I think there's also a fear that I've grappled with both as a leader and even as a parent, is that I won't be needed.
Oh my gosh.
Because when you're not needed, does that mean my job will be eliminated for some people? But for me, it's more of that also has been a big part of my identity as I shifted to the caregiver is, if they no longer need me, does that mean that I did my job well, or does that mean I'm obsolete? Ooh. And I think as a woman, you don't want to not be needed because that's part of your nurturing nature sometimes. And as a Black woman, it sometimes is just your voice. Like, if I'm not needed, will I not be heard?
Will I not
anymore?
be heard? Will I just be erased? Will it be like,
Will
that movies where the people just disappear, but they like kind of fade away into the scene? You're like, will that be me?
Yes. That's a different type of rapture.
Oh my gosh.
But I also have it's a different type of rapture. It's happening. It's happening.
I'm describing the rapture. I didn't mean
it. Like, girl, like, I literally would just be visioning, like, oh my gosh, everybody's doing this and I'm just here not talking. Am I like fading? Am I being my particles? Are my particles leaving? So
it's so true.
That's just like another thing I had to confront and just be like, you know what? It'll be okay.
Like, think about the role we play as. And the reason I toggle between talking about parenting and I talk about caregiving, because I know there's some folks who choose not to be parents or who are able to become parents and have to choose a different pathway, but are caregivers in some way or another. So I try to be inclusive. But in this particular thought, it's about being a parent. And one of the things that for me, I had to really shift in terms of my leadership, and I'm being tested right this minute, like pressure tested on this shift, and that is everybody doesn't need me to do everything for them. And in fact, the reason that folks are not rising to the level of excellence that is required when you rock with me is because actually, if you just wait long enough, Kishshana just do it herself. Kishshana will fix it. Kishshana will figure it out. Kishshana will make it better. Kishshana will solve the problem. Kishshana will take care of it.
That is the thing.
And
that is a huge thing.
I used to take such pride, and particularly because I'm a solo mama, and I used to take such pride in being able to just knock it down by myself. And I had help, thankfully, when I moved back to New York City. After I got divorced, I moved very close to my parents. And so my dad was like, 100% hit, pinch hitter. My mom, my step-pops when he was alive. I mean, everybody just kind of pitched in and did what they needed to do. And yet, the lion's share of decision-making and responsibility for things that had to do with my kiddo fell on my shoulders. And so I took that, I'm going to carry the baby bag, I'm going to carry the stroller, I'm going to carry the carrier all in one hand with my purse. Like that attitude, I took that with me into work. I took that with me into relationships. I took that with me into building a company. I always talk about being built off the muscle. And that's, it serves you until it no longer serves you, but it also serves you at a cost. And so when you talk about like, oh my gosh, if I did my job right, would I not be needed? Would I disappear? Would my voice be silenced? Like all of those things were running through my mind. I didn't even know they were running through my mind. They were just running. Something was going on in there. So when you think about how you are parenting your children differently than how we experience parenting from our parents, what do you think is like the biggest shift in the way you approach parenting from the way that we grew up?
I have to definitely say that I'm parenting with intention. And I parent, I educate, I am partnered, I embody and I work and I breathe liberation for the community. So my goal, I actually have an objective and a goal for parenting. And I know that for my mother, there were a lot of circumstances. You're a single mom, you're actually married, but in a marriage that was fruitless, and you were doing things because you thought it was the right thing, because you were raised to do what you think was the right thing to do, not what made you happy. And for me, I have put my fulfillment first, with the idea that me being a fulfilled and happy person will give them the best person that can be their mother. And my intentions really in parenting also are to not pass on the things. Let's be clear now. You gonna mess your kids up now.
That's it.
Your kids gonna have some kind of issue from
that's
it.
It.
That's
Six
just,
sessions on
that's
the
what
couch.
it is.
Everybody will get it.
And I will be enrolling, full transparency, I will be enrolling my 4-year-old in therapy next year when he starts school, real school. And I just, not as a thing because, and people always say, why would you do that? I want him to feel okay with working through his emotions, with talking through things with not just me first, if that's his preference, But I want him to have the idea that it is okay to talk about the way you feel, and it is okay not to feel the same things that your mother feels or your parents feel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm purposefully raising them to think about and question. And that was something that was seen as such a negative. Whenever I asked a question that was contradictory to whatever idea that my parents had or our family had,
Mm-hmm.
it was like, why would you question it? But you're supposed to be seen and not heard.
Seen and not
And that
heard.
it always confused me when little girls are supposed to be seen and not heard. There's three quotes that my mom said all the time. And that was one that had always confused me. Like, what do you like? So I'm never supposed to speak. Like, when is it okay to speak? How do I speak? And that translated it to me taking so long to find my voice, like taking so long to appropriately then use that a voice. And I'm trying to figure this out as an adult in graduate school, starting a career. Like,
Right.
is it okay to talk now? Is it my turn? Like, is this one of those times? And I learned that at home was to be silent and to work hard. That's just it.
Keep your
Like,
head
you
down
work hard.
and be grateful.
And be grateful that you have a space to do these things.
Oh my gosh, I used to be so resentful of gratitude, but go ahead.
Because it wasn't gratitude that we were taught.
Yeah.
We were taught that it was a form of servantship or indentured servitude, as I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
We've given you these things, so now you essentially need to work to pay them off. And your work is going to school. Your work is going to college.
That is your job.
And, like, that is your job. It's indentured servitude. You want this bread and water, you got to do these things.
You got to do these things. That's funny.
Yeah, got to do these things. And, like, love the idea. Wouldn't trade my experiences for the world. But I do know that when my children, I hope when they become adults, I want them to choose. And I want them to choose them. And I want them to choose them every time, no matter what I say I think is right. We're setting up the prepaid fund. We're doing this and doing that. And if they come to me and say, Mom, I want to, travel. I want to just sit for a minute. I want to, whatever, work at crystals. Like, I want them to be so satisfied with themselves as a human being that they are not searching for external praise and they're not searching for external validation all of the time.
Woo.
Because that's essentially what has driven 32 years of my life. And
yes.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
It's
exhausting. And think about how that translates to like your professional life as well. So as you were talking, my eyes have been closed as we've been talking, because I'm seeing this in such technicolor right now as I experience something very similar. And it makes me think about the fact that translates to the way you manage and lead people, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you were taught to be seen and not heard when you are a team member, that how you show up tends to either be just that or a pendulum swing all the way to the other side where you are like, loud and you are abrasive and you are like matter of fact or whatever the case may be, whatever people would say, that would be the opposite of being silent. And also as a people leader, right, particularly if you're a people manager, etc., because you spent so much time being silenced and being told to silence, once you got the mic, then it's a whole, you gave me a promotion? Wait a minute. Is this thing on? You start tapping the mic. Is this thing on?
I cringe at the person. And it's okay. I always have to tell myself, it's okay, you didn't know any better. But sometimes I cringe at the way, like, I was narcissistically like, no, y'all are going to listen. Tap, tap. 1, 2, 1, 2. Have a seat. Have a seat. Have a seat. We're going in.
Me.
Like, literally. I cringe because I just didn't know any other way. And while I was like literally, and I don't want this for anyone. And I'm going through therapy. Mind you, I graduated from undergrad, Kish. Like, I graduated from undergrad. I was 20 years old. What in your world? I was 20 years old. I started my first career, my first teaching job. I literally turned 22, 2 days before I got hired. And that is the start of my career, my professional career. At 22, I know nothing about life.
Okay.
And I think it was 24, 25, when I got my first like real leadership management position over people that were easily twice my age, easily out experienced me. And I cringe at the things that I would say because I felt like I had to be abrasive in order to be impactful. And that is not a thing.
That is not a thing. That is a made up thing.
That is a made up thing. But I almost feel like it's a thing that is forced on Black women in leadership.
Absolutely.
If you're not the inclusivity person, it's almost as if, well, she's a take charge, or and they say these things like they're such positive things. She's a take charge, no nonsense type of person.
And you're like, you just sound really angry.
You do. And thanks a lot. That's not really who I am, but now you topped it up. I got to kind of live up to it. So thanks.
That's like you got hyped up on the side of the ring. You're going to go back in there and you're going to take charge and you're going to be no nonsense and you're going to take them down in 3 shots.
I wasn't trying to do that.
Right.
No. No, sir. No, that's not what I was trying to do. But as a caregiver, and you brought up an important point, not everybody desires to be a parent.
Come on.
And I wish with all of my 10 fingers, 10 toes, I wish everybody would stop silently and publicly shaming Black women and Black women in leadership for not choosing to be a caregiver to a man, to a child, or to anybody but their fluffy pet, or to their shoes if they so choose. Okay. Because all of those things matter. Being a caregiver starts with caring for yourself. And so many people start their journey to marriage, to parenting, without caring for themselves, and therefore end up being the worst caregiver to everybody, including their teams at work, because your misappropriated emotions then seep into your leadership attitude and style.
Woo!
And your caregiving has to start with you. So if you are telling, and I told people during this, it's fresh for the panini. So during this pandemic, I had to tell one of the teachers, I said, sis, we are virtual. If you need to cut that camera off and give these babies some online worksheets because you need to cry for a day, that is okay. That is A-okay. If that is what you feel in your soul that day, because what's going to happen is you're going to keep holding it in, it's going to keep building up, and it's going to come out at the wrong time.
Exactly. You're going to snap on one of them babies, you didn't even mean it, and then it's going to be a whole situation that don't need to be.
Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back in a few.
This episode is brought to you by Bloomerang, the donor database trusted by tens of thousands of fundraisers. For donor management, email marketing, online giving, and more, Bloomerang has you covered. Listeners of the Let's Take This Offline podcast get 10% off their first year of Bloomerang. Just visit bloomerang.co/Kishshana. That's Bloomerang, BLOOMERANG.co/Kishshana, KISHSHANA. Bloomerang is committed to elevating the voices of Black, Indigenous, and professionals of color nonprofit professionals. To learn more about contributing to Bloomerang's blog, visit bloomerang.co/blog/write. Now, let's get back to the show.
Education is one of those things I feel like it transcends certain places because you work with people. Children and young adults in high school are the formative years where that's who you imprint on, and those are the people you're ultimately going to manage later on or going to be leaders later on.
That's exactly right.
So you've got to model what it looks like to self-care. Like caregiving for yourself should be a priority. Exactly and right. Showing that on a daily basis, like to the human beings that you manage, it's a thing. And it's a thing that's not for my liking and my taste. It's not a thing promoted enough. And it's not a thing leaders are ever trained on.
And it's something that I didn't mean to cut you. Go ahead.
Go,
I was
go,
gonna say,
go.
that's something we talk about this. Something I care deeply about, but I came to the care because I came through the cross. Because it wasn't until I was, full on degenerative back challenge. I have full on, every time the issue came back,
You
I was
going through it?
right. Jesus was like, so you want me to smack you with it again? All right, here I go, girl. 1 and 2, and he's like, I tried to whisper to you. But we come to this understanding how to take care of ourselves through pain, and it's ridiculous. And so to your point about this kind of performance that we get like pushed into, some of us at home with the people who we have to care for realize we didn't like them people, little people and big people alike. We didn't like ourselves. They didn't really care for us too. And now to your point, when we first started talking, we couldn't run off and hide at work.
Nope.
We couldn't disappear into the depths of our paperwork.
Nope.
We could not immerse ourselves in the coffee time and water cooler conversations, the real tea.
Nope.
Right?
Nope.
And we had to look, the Lipton steeped is happening at the crib.
There ain't no steeping like the K-cup, baby.
Yay! Come on, K-cup.
No.
So to your point, like it revealed, I remember one day I was like, my kid is actually seeing me work around the clock. How long has she been watching me work around the clock? I am in pain and can't move. And I'm like, pass me my computer. This is not healthy. No wonder when she's afraid to sleep in, because she said to me, you don't allow anybody to rest because you don't want to rest. And I was like,
ooh, baby, did she tell you? Did she gather you?
She gathered me.
She gathered you.
She is a Sag. She is a gatherer.
She gathered you.
Yeah, she did. She gathered me. Some of us need to get gathered.
And it's that type of gathering that you really need.
Yes.
It's a gathering from someone you will listen to, because one of our, I feel, downfalls, I think one of the things that we were raised and transmitted also was that people don't know anything. I don't know about you, but I was just kind of raised.
I was raised. People don't know nothing. They don't know nothing.
People don't know anything. So unless it comes from, nothing cuts me as deeply as when a family member says something to me.
Oh.
People can tell me, I tell you, some people could cuss me from head to toe, and I would look at them and say, okay, and walk away. Like, nobody moves my soul, but the things that my family members say to me. And I don't even think but when you were going to school and when you were doing all these things and you first got married and all these things, you were like the torch, you were the beacon. Like, it was like, well, Kishshana, she's off at school in Boston and she studied abroad and then she got married. And it was just all of these things. So I'm just like, okay, if Kishshana can do it, then I can do it.
Right. Meanwhile, don't follow me.
There was never a conversation. Luckily, I was blessed to have you as a cousin and someone that when I started talking to, or I didn't know to ask the questions, but when we finally broke the barrier on both sides, I feel like when you felt like you weren't ashamed enough to speak and I wasn't ashamed enough to ask, the conversations did right. Two things. The conversations then became so real, so much more meaningful, and the context became bigger.
Yes.
And looking at your journey as a leader, so in so many ways, it kind of let me know it was okay to transform myself. It was okay to walk away from things and positions in a good life that didn't serve me. It's okay to be in a position and be like, this is going great, but when they cut me loose, I got to figure it out. And I can figure it out. And I can figure it out without a crutch or without putting other people down or without it being a negative because of the experience I had. So always cool. You know what we didn't do, Kish? Hold on. Pause all the deepness. Ma'am.
Yes,
ma'am. I've got this good old cocktail here, and I don't hear you taking not a sip.
But I was doing it quietly.
I don't understand why. I don't understand. You need to let the people know, because let me tell you.
Tell the people.
The mark of a good leader is knowing a good mock or cocktail. Whichever serves you.
Whatever serves
you need something. Whatever serves you, you got to have something that is your signature. So
It is.
I'm over. Let me raise my glass right now.
Right
Take
now,
a
I'm
little sip.
drinking spiked bubble tea. I just want y'all to know.
Ooh,
It's
that's
a weekend when
safe.
we're taping, y'all. So yes, it's good. It's a bubble tea, and then has a little botanical flavors infused
Mm.
in there that I had in the fridge. But here's the thing:
Mm.
I'm always making a joke. Like, first of all, for folks who choose to not imbibe in alcohol for all of the reasons that are yours, we totally respect that here. We joke
Yes.
about it a lot because we grew up in a huge West Indian family where, interestingly, alcohol was always around, but I don't really know if anybody was really drinking it.
Girl,
I don't know.
please. They was
They were
drinking.
drinking it. They were sneaking it, wasn't it? We were sent off to go play Dungeons and Dragons
That's what it was.
and all
That's what
type
it
of
was.
other games, and then they were out.
That's what it
Okay,
was.
that's what it was. Because alcohol was
That's
like never really it was always around, but never really a big thing. And in college, I didn't drink really because I had a car
okay.
early, and I pledged early, and we couldn't have alcohol at our parties, and so I was like, well, not only am I the designated driver because I am the only one with a car, but also I can't drink with my letters on. So oh well, here we are, dry.
That is hilarious. That's hilarious.
Dry.
I was underage all undergrad.
Right.
So.
You were like, I was just
I was
underage.
like,
It's just fine.
right. It was, and that's what literally me. Every frat party, like, let me have a sip. Nope. Okay, I'm good. That's it for
Thank
me.
you. That's it for me.
Because my mom, I literally feel like my mom's gonna pop up any second and see me drinking. Like,
yes,
she's gonna drive these 8 hours. So yeah.
Oh my gosh, no.
So if you don't drink, you just need a thing that serves you. Like, and I don't. You know, there's times I've gone without as well. So many reasons, like you said. Just a thing that serves your escape.
Whatever, exactly. And I think that's one of the interesting parts about that I've seen in how people have been living and how people have been leading in the last year. And that is, we used to be able, many of us could keep a very separate existence between the routines that we had at home and the routines that we had at work. And so there was a clear delineation between going to soccer on the weekends, going to pee-wee ball on the weekends, swim lessons, dance for me, soccer, all the things on the weekends. There was like a clear line. There was brunch on Sunday afternoons after church. Then there was this, then there was that. There were all these different compartments of your life and routines that went with that compartment, including at work. So people didn't see how you operated with your family, or that, in fact, you and your fill in the blank, literally don't even speak to each other. Like, none of that stuff was revealed until we were working at home during the pandemic. Because people were like, I was working from home. No, you were trying to get some work done at home during the pandemic. Because that's the best we could do. And so people's stuff, I think, was really, really revealed. And that's I think the health thing for me and the wellness aspect for me became so large because I realized that even as you talked about therapy, and such a commendable thing to be able to put your son in therapy at a young enough age so that he can develop agency over his own emotional center, which is what that is when our children are taught to not have agency over their own emotional core. And so by the time we get to adulthood, some of us are spinning top. And I saw that in my own life. I saw that in my clients' life, in the folks that I coach, that people were just off center, and that even going to therapy felt more like a performative check the box activity and less of an opportunity to really be able to fill your well.
That is, it's the performative check the box, because at some point in your life, you become checklists. And some people are able to move past that and live a life where the checklists are part of it. But especially when you become a caregiver and you're a leader, so much of your work is centered around meeting standards, quotas, objectives, or checking off the things to make sure you've done everything you need to do, rather than making sure you're doing the things you want to do. And at no point in life should therapy really be a part of a checklist. But for so many people, it's like a thing. It became a trendy almost thing. Like, oh, well, I'm going to go to therapy, when you're not going let's be honest, like you got to go past those 2 free sessions to really do any work that's going to make it transformative. And the fact that it is still seen for so many people that are engaged deeply in their work as something extra rather than something maintenance. Like for me, I cannot see, gotta go get my fill, gotta go get my pedi, gotta go to therapy. Like these are the things that are on my appointments because I'm
Yes.
going to do these things. Like just as those things serve me and I like them, I want my fill in as much as I want my therapy. Like because it is not it's not optional.
No, it's not optional. And for me, that falls under the maintenance category. So when I think about my self-care, I divide it into things that are maintenance and they're routine driven, regardless of how. So like for me, I get my nails done every 3 weeks, y'all, like clockwork. I've gotten my nails done since I was 14 years old. There's only been 2 periods in all of my 40 odd years of life that I've not got my nails done. And one of them was during the pandemic. Okay. And so for me, that is a routine. Like it's something that I look forward to. I follow. When I think of care, I've had to step my care routine up. So I had to add a life coach to my routine. To the care aspect of it because I was addressing some things in therapy that I realized I needed a different type of support to kind of like give me a little jolt because you got to know what your personality is and how you respond to things, right? And I don't need anybody tiptoeing around me. That's not who I am. And so I needed a little bit of a jolt. So I had to add a life coach to that. And she's been on the show. And then I had to add acupuncture to my massage routine because I get a massage every month. I had to add acupuncture to that because of the fact that I have debilitating back pain, right? I had to add water flotation therapy to that. So that's not routine for me yet because that's an additional type of care. That's like another petal of my care flower that's opening because it's adding to the richness that ensures that when I get on the starting block, those things have to be done in order for me to be able to have a shot off the block, if that makes sense.
But that's that's important that you use that analogy because no athlete is coming to the game without all of these things that make you a good athlete or all of the training and all of the pieces put together.
Absolutely.
And if that's what you need for your starting block in your career, those things, not even in your career, for your career and for your life, your personal well-being, then give yourself the best shot off the block you can. The best. Be in the best lane.
But Jelaine, here's the thing. There are going to be a lot of folks who might be listening who are going to say, but, this sounds so good, but I don't have fill in the blank time, partner, ability. That sounds like a luxury, etc. First of all, we need to normalize what luxury is.
Yes. Yes.
Because luxury for me right now is driving to Jersey to get Krispy Kremes because they don't have Krispy Kremes in New York. And if they did, I would drive more often and it would not be luxurious. But because I got to cross 2 bridges and drive 40 miles to the drive-thru during the panorama.
There are people, like I was one of those people. I still am. There's certain things that I'm like, I just don't have the 5 minutes. I don't have the extra $20. Like I don't. And baby, sometimes I don't. Student loans are real. Working because you need to pay bills is real.
It's real.
Staying in something because you're afraid that you won't be able to put food on your table or pay a mortgage is real.
Real.
Living in the parameters of your debt is real. And I want part of my leadership and my parenting approach is that when I say that I am parenting, I am educating, I am leading for liberation, I am passing the knowledge I've gained from my mistakes on so that other people that I manage, my children, my students, do not have to carry the burdens of those mistakes. I have chosen the things that I've done and I've lived well within my decisions, but I also know it's my responsibility to pass that knowledge on. I know that deeply. And when I think about the things that I have to do for self-care or the things that have to be done, I prioritize. Right now for me, I have gotten back into a routine of self-care through wellness and working out, but that means I have to get up at 3:45 a.m. because I've got 3 kids. One is still breastfeeding. I still got to feed her. I got to pump. I've got to do all of these things to make sure my kids are alive. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. And get back home to get them ready. So that means 3:45 a.m. and we're in a panini. So I got to be there when nobody else is, literally nobody else. So it means for me, I got to build it in where I can. And that doesn't mean I get to go to bed at 8 p.m., but for me, that's the one thing I've chosen.
Yes.
And for you, it might be something different, but you can choose one thing. And it takes years. Let's let's be real. Because Kishshana, like, we're the ultimate. We know better, and it takes us forever to do better.
To do better. Oh my gosh, we were looking at it over there like, I know.
Right. Sometimes it takes a good, like, hey cuz text, and then this flood of things comes out, and like we call each other out in the kindest way, and
Absolutely.
then it's like, okay, let me pick one thing to get together today because of this conversation. So, and if you don't have yourself an accountability person or somebody you can really be honest with, try and start that. Try and be honest about your vulnerability, your fears, your things that you carry with one person in your life. Because do you have a friend or do you have a family member that you can go to and just say these things out loud to? Because it helps so much. Because you'd be surprised what other people are struggling with and trying to put on a front for in front of you.
Ooh.
And you're like, well, we're good, but are we really being honest about the things we're carrying in our personal life that are spilling into our jobs? Is that the reason we're so stagnant in our careers? Because we cannot let go of the things that are actually anchoring us there?
Come on.
And do we need to have that conversation so we can let it go? So if it's your one more thing might be, hey, having an honest conversation with a friend, and that costs you nothing. Nothing. It's $3.99.
$3.99. But listen, it might have to make you do something that feels costly, which is decide. You know, because oftentimes the first step is not to actually take the step; it's to decide. Like, I have decided, and that sometimes feels so scary. And something that you said just now, and also when we first started talking, that I wanted to make sure we didn't forget in this conversation. And that was about the balance that you have to make both at home and at work, when home and work feel like it's the same place, between holding space for folks who are just not okay on certain days because folks have been holding it in, performing, escaping, sliding through the trap door for their entire life in different spaces and places, whether it was in the classroom, whether it was with relationships at home, etc. And so there's a space you got to hold for that, but also what we sussed out some mediocrity too. Like, listen, friend, you've been right in the middle, coasting and blaming it on the pandemic. Like, what are you doing? Like, you know you were trifling before. Let's be clear. Now we can just see it.
You're exposed now is what it is.
Right.
And I think that exposure is the worst to yourself. Because when you realize you've been a fraud to yourself, and not even a fraud, that's a harsh word to use, but when you realize you've pushed or suppressed your true calling,
yes,
or your true talents out of fear or whatever it may be, because we all have different reasons. But when you realize that for yourself, that's a moment. And your moment might be a day, it might be a month, it might be a year, it might be 2. But it's a moment that you've got to work through. A moment. And I think who actually helped me realize that too was our other cousin. We have a lot of cousins, a lot of us.
There are a lot of us, y'all. There are 30-something of us, but it's okay.
30. There's so many of you guys.
Actually, there's so many people. There's so many.
Yeah. So the good cousin, Dr. Chanel Flowers, like, she just tell me, like, what did you do? Like, she just, girl, what are you doing? What are you talking about? Like, you're not on your boss stuff right now. And I'm just like, you're right.
Right.
Ma'am, you're right.
You're right, ma'am.
You're right. You're right.
Like, you're right. You're right. And then is it, can I help you? You're like, wait a minute. Can you help me?
Can you? Will you? And yes. Like, we had a whole fall apart. Like, what are we doing? And like, she would be like, you're not doing what you need to do because you're so good at X, Y, Z. And I'm like, girl, what are you doing? Like, why are we together collaborating? And even you with this podcast, like, look at you. Hello, look at you. But that's just a thing. You gotta sit with that moment. You gotta understand you're having that moment, and you got to decide to move past it. Because some people's moment lasts a lifetime, and you look up and you've given 35 years to a company that has not used your skills, your spirits, your your gifts. Your gifts have been squandered because these people have taken advantage of it.
They've used you up. But also,
they gave you a paycheck and took your dream.
Correct. But you have to, that's one of the things that for me, your life is your choice. Mm-hmm. And you get to decide. Mm-hmm. And not all decisions are roses and candy and cotton candy, but you get to decide. And when you are thinking about your leadership journey, when you're thinking about it, and I wanted to think about it through the context of parenting, because I feel like there's a lot of expectations. People expect us to show up. We expect our children to do this way. There's an expectation of how, particularly as mothers, how we're supposed to be. If the babies go left, it's because of the mother. If the babies go right, it's because of the mother. If they don't have no home training, it's because of their mamas. We would say they don't have no bra-tupsy.
No bra-tupsy, no.
And we know because of the way we were raised, our orientation to work and to education and to family expectations really drove a lot of the ways that we ended up performing our careers that we pursued, et cetera. And so I thought it was important for us to kind of unpack some of that. And it was so good to hear you talking about, how you've had to really step into confronting that, because I think a lot of folks are confronting their mental models and their lived experiences during this time and now. This just caused folks to just kind of have to reassess across the board. And so now we're looking at, okay, what do you do on the other side of that?
Yes. And it's okay to be a woman that's a leader. It's okay to plan your career around being a mom if that's what you want to do. It's a thing you can do. If those are your priorities, and I absolutely tell them at my job, I am a mother first. All you little funky people, I'm raising my children. Like, I am raising my children, and you will get my all, but you will get my all after I am a mother. That is my choice. That might not be your choice as a leader, but you have to understand what role that is playing in your life and how you choose. And when you move forward, like, just make that your intention and set your intention. And believe it or not, people will respect and fall in line more when you are adamant about the things that your intentions are. So just set that intention. Make sure that you are clear about what space leadership holds in your life and what space parenting holds in your life. And sometimes they'll blend, but you have to ensure that whatever your intentions are, you're following through on both ends.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But the intention starts with, what do you want for your life? Right? Like that.
Yes.
It is not too late to prioritize yourself and not prioritize yourself out of anger. We do that, Jelaine, don't we? We like, forget it.
I'm going to do this.
I'm going to do
this.
You know what?
You keep these kids. I'm going to the spa for a day.
That's it. That's how we get. As opposed to, it's the third Thursday of the month. Mommy is going to the spa.
Like right now, like even at this moment, my partner knows. I said, hey, this is on the family shared calendar. It is color coded. I am not available. He understands that. All of the things and I also want to normalize that being a woman in leadership, or even a person in leadership that is a parent, it is okay to get help. It is okay to get and pay for or ask for help. I have someone that comes every Saturday morning to fold laundry because I cannot. I just can't. Okay? And for me, that is a thing that I just refuse. I will live out of a basket of clean clothes. Okay? That is okay for me. But for me, getting that help was part of me being able to use that time to be more productive in Black Parenting 101, all the other things that I want to do that I can't necessarily fit into the work week or fit into parenting or fit into self-care.
Anything you need to do.
Yes, anything. And it was so normal, actually, when you think about it growing up. All Jamaican women had what was called one helper. They had a helper come in the house. They had a helper coming to the house. You don't have no helper?
You don't have, and then and people look at you with such pity. You don't have a helper? And you're
like, you don't have no helper?
And you feel like,
what?
No. What?
No.
But where do we get it twisted? Like, I'm like, that's such a cultural norm. Like, Carrie Ann is coming up from Jamaica to watch the kids while the baby, like all of that. That's a norm. And then we get into these modern relationships, as my mother would say. You're a modern parent. The other day, she asked me if I was reading a new parenting book again. Because I was like, Mom, when we were growing up, I was like, all of you parented us exactly the same. Okay? And so if anybody falls off the side of the truck, It was our fault, not yours. We parent each child differently. And I promise you, Jelaine, she cocked her head to one side. She cocked her head to the next as I was talking. She was quite calm and fully listening. And she said, "You're reading a new parenting book again?" Great, Mom. Thanks.
She basically was like, "You made it, didn't you? What's the problem?"
She said, "I made it."
Like, sis, do you not have a roof over your head?
Is you is not.
Do you not go on
degree.
vacation?
Right.
You got the degrees. You and your brother live a fairly good life from what I can see. All the mimosas you can send. What's the problem, sis? It worked for y'all. It worked for y'all.
Sis? That's what she
Dawn
asked.
said, "Don't come for her." She said, "Don't come for her." She did not
none of the tool owner didn't fall off the truck. So
she said,
y'all
"Y'all
worry about
look
it.
fine to me. I did my job. Go do yours."
It's your job.
That's what she said to you.
She did tell me
That's what
that.
she said.
She also started several conversations this week with, "I know Sanai is not my child, but..."
They start with that, but what they really mean to say is, "Would you like to drop her off? Because you're not raising her right."
You're not raising her right.
I say this as I prepare to drive 10 hours to Miami because my mother has guilted me into seeing her grandchildren for a week. It's been so long, and I know they miss me. Okay. All right, ma'am.
We got to have another conversation with the cousins. I'm going to round up because I think the Fab crew, they need to get on a Zoom or something with us so they can see it, because we have first gen problems.
The first gen immigrant children of the world,
yes,
are carrying a different style of everything. And the thing in our family is we're so blessed to have leaders in nonprofit, education, the military. Like, there are people doing so many great things. But there's just so many conversations to have in that. So you're absolutely right.
Absolutely right. Well, listen, Fab Crew, obviously I get the pleasure of talking to my cousin whenever I want it, but I could talk to Jelaine all day. And I know y'all were sitting there with all types of notes because of the gems we dropped, but we are coming to the end of another great conversation. So Jelaine, I just want to thank you so much for hanging out with me today and for just dropping all of your knowledge. I mean, you just were everything from like, put the babies in therapy early. Okay, friends? And it's not because something happened. Things don't have to happen to make a decision. All the way to, you could hold space between holding space for you because things are not right in the world, and get your booty in gear because you're being mediocre. Get your life. Like, and everything in between. So you dropped so many truth bombs for us today, and I so appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on and hanging out with me.
I really appreciated it. I had a blast, of course, as usual. Thanks for having me.
Taking a final little sip.
Get it all. Let me drain my glass.
Yes, drain. All right, Fab Crew. We'll be back next week with another fantastic episode. But until then, I want to make sure y'all are living well and leading well. And we will talk to y'all real soon.
Have a good one.
On our next episode, I'll be talking to a customer service expert on why having a customer service orientation is critical no matter what position you hold, especially when you're a leader. It's gonna be a juicy one, so make sure you keep it locked by downloading, subscribing, forwarding this to a friend, and leaving us a review. Are you bringing your parenting style to work? No, this is a serious question, okay, friends? This question applies to you whether you're a parent, a godparent, a auntie, a caregiver, because some of us are back at home taking care of a parent or another loved one. So this is a serious question. Are you bringing your parenting style to work? How we were parented as children can also show up in how you treat your team members as well as your peers. I know some of y'all are like, We tend to hide our home selves from work, but bring our work selves home. You ever had your partner say, don't you talk to me like you talk to your employees? So my tip here today is real quick. Make sure as you think about your style that you're intentional in the way you show up. Right now, all the spheres of our lives are overlapping. It's just like one huge Venn diagram that's like smushing together. And if we aren't careful, every relationship we have in every aspect of our life is going to take a hit. And as you think about, for those of us who have children or who are caregivers at home, the ways in which we are showing up for them, the ways that we are showing up for ourselves, if you don't think what you do at work is bleeding into all of that, you got another thing coming. And so I want you to make sure, as you think about the little people that you have, and you think about the grown folks that you are working alongside, that you are approaching everything with intention.